Well, at least Gilbertson wrote one report.
Kohberger allegedly stalked one of the victims. That's false. You knew that was false. For anybody who had never heard that before, that question is now planted into them, unqualified representation that Mr. Kohberger stalked one of the witnesses, and that's false. We do not have evidence that the defendant had direct contact with 1122 or with residents of 1122. But we can put his phone in that area. There are many residences in that area. It's a dense population of mostly college-related occupants.
Everything stated in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. And just like everything else in these cases we discuss here on this channel, everything is alleged. Hey guys, this is Jules with True Crime Reactions. We're going on to the next exhibit that was recently released in the Idaho student murder case. And this one is from Gilbertson. Now, if you know what's been going on for the past few weeks, you've known that we have a report written by Brett Payne that claims that Gilbertson here not only had a pocket recording of the interview that they did with Bryan Kohberger in Pennsylvania on the night, or shall I say early morning, that he was arrested, but that there was also an official transcript and a report about the exact same interview written by Gilbertson. Those things don't exist. I have FOIA'd MPD, I have FOIA'd ISP, none of that stuff exists. So the only other thing I can think of now, which was actually suggested to me, is that I FOIA the chain of custody. Where did the pocket recording go? Who was it turned into? Gilbertson is going to have to answer to these things because the pocket recording had to have happened. And if they're trying to hide the fact that it happened, that probably means that Brett Payne wasn't even supposed to mention anything, and maybe it was being recorded in secret. I don't know. They're acting like they literally can't find anything, and I'm being told that I'm not the first one to ask for this stuff, which I didn't think I was. But that also tells me that they've known about this issue and about how these reports are telling us that these things are out there, even though they don't exist, for quite some time now. I'll get videos together to show you guys how I asked for things and what I was said specifically, and show all of the receipts and proofs and emails and all that stuff after we're done with these exhibits. But for now, let's jump to the paperwork. Now again, this is Exhibit S7, Rebuttal Expert Disclosure from Darren Gilbertson. In response to defendant's expert's disclosures filed on January 23, 2025, the state may call Darren Gilbertson, detective for the Idaho State Police, to testify regarding the following. Gilbertson will testify he was assigned and worked as the lead investigator for the Idaho State Police, assisting the Moscow Police Department in this case. It was him and Brett Payne. As the lead investigator for the Idaho State Police, Gilbertson is familiar with most of the evidence recovered by law enforcement in this case. Now, I do want to stop there and just say that he is not the original lead. It was originally Talbot. But Brett Payne wasn't the original lead for MPD's side of things either. As the lead, Gilbertson is familiar with most of the evidence recovered by law enforcement in this case. For purposes of this disclosure, Gilbertson relied on the autopsies of the victims, his personal observations of 1122 King Road and the surrounding area, the photographs and video taken of 1122 King Road, and the reports detailing the processing of the crime scene at 1122 King Road. Gilbertson will testify he arrived at the crime scene on November 13, 2022 at about 2:40 p.m. From November 13, 2022 to November 14, 2022, ISP detectives documented and processed the crime scene. On November 16, 2022, ISP Forensic Services were briefed on the scene information. That's also the same day that the sheath was picked up from Moscow Police Department and brought over to the Connect that would then bring it over to the forensic lab. We FOIA'd that information too. On November 17, 2022, ISP Forensic Services arrived and took over documentation and processing of the crime scene. Gilbertson will testify based on review of surrounding video surveillance. Investigators believe the homicides occurred between 4:07:47 and 4:20:47 a.m. Gilbertson will testify investigators conducted timed runs at 1122 King Road to gain an understanding of the approximate time needed to have carried out the homicides. Sure. Okay. There's a report on this and it's going to be attached. We've gone over it already, but I will read it again because it's attached to this exhibit. Specifically, this was done to see if one person could have committed the 4 homicides in the approximately 13 minutes time frame estimated by investigators. Yeah, someone with dexterity and mobility issues, visual snow vision issues, in the middle of the night in a 3-story home that they can't place him ever being around ever before, with no connections to the victims whatsoever and no injuries on him that would show that he had just done anything even remotely close to this. And there's no way that someone could go into this house with just a soft mask over their face with even just if it was Xana, just if Xana was the only one to ever fight back, there's no way that with how that fight is written in blood on the floor, that there wouldn't be marks on the face, the eyes, the area of the neck, somewhere where the soft tissues of the mask and the outfit would have definitely shown some sort of markings. Also, the fact that there's none of his DNA under any of their fingernails, just based on the fact there is defensive wounds, just based on the fact that we know, again, how much Xana fought, and now we know that Ethan was definitely awake, not only because of the levels of amphetamine in his system, but also because he was up on his right elbow as the first wound that caused bleeding started happening. So he was not laying down, he was up, he was alert, he was aware. And again, there's no way that people could not have heard what was going on with Xana. Gilbertson will discuss his experience with timed runs and how those timed runs were conducted as detailed in his attached report. Gilbertson's CV will be disclosed in upcoming discovery, which is again just his credentials, his background, like a resume basically for being an expert in the subject matter at hand. Gilbertson will testify investigators included 2 possible routes back to the vehicle parking area above and to the south. The shortest and most direct path going from the parking area and moving east to west along the back of the house took approximately 30 seconds. A second path starting at the southern edge of the property and walking a fence line through some trees and moving in a south to north direction towards the back of the house took approximately 1 minute. The times to make the same 2 paths at a running pace were approximately 6 to 7 seconds for the short path and 10 to 12 seconds for the longer path. Gilbertson will testify defendant could have gone from his car to the home, carried out the 4 homicides, and returned to his car in as few as 2 minutes and 6 seconds, going at a fast pace on the shortest route to the vehicle, or 3 minutes and 45 seconds, going at a slower pace on the longer route to the vehicle. Gilbertson will testify this would allow defendant time to clean up or change clothes before leaving the scene. Yeah, and let me also mind you, they brought canines out at some point, like the next day, I believe it was, and there was no scent outside of that house. So even if he or whoever would have ran out of that house with blood on their clothes and then changed those clothes before getting into a vehicle, the dogs would have picked up that scent and it would have gone to the area in which it stopped, which would have been where they were taken off of the person and put into the vehicle or into a bag before being put into the vehicle, or however they wanted to say it. For them to just be sniffing for a person wouldn't make any sense because there's so many people in that area that are strangers that just walk around. But the scent of blood was not found outside of that house. That matters so much, and it's not talked about hardly at all anymore. Now, this is supplemental number 194, which again, we went over because we spent hours and hours and hours live going through all of these and Moscow PD's documents when they became public. I'm going to go ahead and read the full thing again since it's attached here, and it's been a while. This was all done on November 21st, 2022, which again is before they had any information on Kohberger, before they had his name or anything like that. Now let's keep in mind, I've already mentioned a few things, but let's keep in mind again, his first job as a fish filleter didn't work out because he could not get the skill down. He was really, really bad with a knife. He also has visual snow. Now, I don't know what the visual snow was like towards this time frame, but we do know that his teenage self wrote about his visual snow online. We have been talking about going over those for a super long time, but right now we're focused on the crime details. Eventually, we'll get there. We've already talked about doing that and going over some of the school assignment paperwork, essays that were found in his apartment that are ridiculously similar to some of the stuff happening right now. We're going to go over all of those things, but keep the visual snow stuff in mind. Again, also keeping in mind that I don't know how it was affecting him at this time, just that it has been something in his history, and the fact that he has mobility and dexterity issues as a medical diagnosis, as something that he has been noted to have had by a doctor, which means he's not going to be able to just maneuver around this house with the kind of efficiency that this type of situation, for as clean as it is, would have had to have been for the damn story that the state really isn't even trying to tell us because they honestly don't have a freaking clue at all. But 11/21/22 is before they would have had anything about him. So let's again continue this, keeping that date in mind. Okay. On November 21st, 2022, Idaho State Police Sergeant Darren Gilbertson, conducted timed runs through the residence at 1122 King Road. Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan were unalived there during the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022. Bryan Kohberger was subsequently arrested and charged with 4 counts of first degree. The purposes of the timed runs was to gain an understanding of the approximate time needed to have carried out the event. It's also good to keep in mind that he did not even bother writing up this report until 7/26/2023. I don't know why, but that's how long it took for him to finally get all of this down. That's why he has information in here now about Kohberger when it comes to the timed runs. But what would the report have looked like if he would have actually written it at the time that this took place? Like if he would have actually sat down the next day and wrote the report, how different would this report have looked? Serious question. Based upon the processing of the crime scene and evidence collected, investigators believed Kohberger, which again is being added after the fact, Kohberger drove to the area and parked at the back of the residence. There is a paved parking area directly to the south that overlooks the back of the residence. Kohberger most likely entered the residence through a sliding glass door located on the second level and rear of the residence and then proceeded as follows. Keep in mind what he just said. Most likely. That's not a definite. That's not saying that that's exactly what happened. That's saying that's the guess. That's the guess, the assumption, the hypothesis. A, after entering through the sliding glass door, that again, he's saying is only the most likely scenario and not the actual facts, Kohberger walked through the kitchen area into a set of stairs that led up to the 3rd floor. Kohberger then went up the stairs to the 3rd floor. At the top of the stairs and directly to the left is a door which was Goncalves' bedroom, and to the right is a short hallway that ended into a bathroom and another door to Mogen's bedroom. Most likely, again, not factually known, Kohberger checked Goncalves' bedroom, saw it was empty, and then moved into Mogen's bedroom, where we believed both Goncalves and Mogen were asleep in Mogen's bed. Kohberger murdered both of them in the bed. To this day, there's still a lot of pointing when it comes to Maddie being the true target, if this was Kohberger, to a lot of people out there. Let's just say it that way. This and the way that it's written in this report, saying that he went up the stairs and noticed that Kaylee's room was empty first and then moved on to Maddie's, that takes that completely away. literally completely. That puts it technically back on Kaylee being the first room that was looked into before moving on, since he would have had to have literally walked right in front of Dylan's bedroom door and not bothered at all before going upstairs. If you had a target and knew where that target was, that makes sense. But if you're going to tell us that you think it's Maddie for some reason, and Steve is also going to come out here now that there's information about Maddie and Xana's cell phone information in the AT&T Advanced Records most recent documentation release, simply because they had the same network. No other reason. It was literally just to compare the way the mapping was for theirs to the way the mapping was for Bryan's. That was literally it. But Steve Goncalves came out here and put an entire narrative on it on national TV with Jesse Weber. And we, again, are going to be the bad guys for even saying something about it. I just wanted to point out in editing that this makes it sound like either A, Kaylee would have been who was being actually initially looked for, or B, it was literally just completely random, and that makes even less sense than anything else just based on the logistics alone. All of those vehicles, how huge this house was, the fact that there was still noise, the fact that there was still lights going on, the fact that there was a dog, all of those vehicles alone would have been enough. And again, you have Ethan's 2 vehicles, and then you have Kaylee's Range Rover, and again, this is just my opinion, but when I look at the Range Rover, I don't think of a girl like Kaylee. I think it's a guy's vehicle. So that's a lot of chance that one would be taking to go into a house that big that looks like there's that many people there. Like, that's absolutely, I mean, a word I can't say on YouTube. You know what I mean? Like, it's actually insane to think of. B, Kohberger most likely, again, not factually proven, went back down the stairs, walked through the second floor living room, and then down the hallway, which ended at Kernodle's bedroom. Based on the evidence, Kernodle was initially attacked just inside the bedroom near the entrance. Now, that's crazy enough in itself, because we know now from the blood spatter report that came out not too long ago, there is evidence of blood on the table where the red Solo cups are, that there's a knife indentation on the table that faces the bar cart, on top of Kaylee's blood being on that table, that there's blood and hair and weapon markings on the floor and the walls of the hallway leading into Xana's room. We also know that there is blood on the back of Xana's door. This story in itself makes no sense to the evidence that we have seen. See, them putting it this way takes away the element in both their narrative and in Dylan's story that someone, be it Xana or Kaylee, because that's what's up for debate here on which one it actually was, saw someone up on the 3rd floor and ran back down the stairs, and this was all heard by Dylan, and then more sounds were heard coming from what would have been Xana's bedroom and the bathroom, because let's be serious, they share a corner, they share a wall. There's no way that Dylan can decipher between the bathroom and Xana's actual room if she's just listening to it from her doorway. Let's be logical. But to say now in this that the person just simply went back down the stairs and walked right past Dylan's room again and into the living room and then down to Xana's room, that takes away both stories having this person chasing someone down the stairs, or someone interrupting what was happening to Kaylee and Maddie, and that person being chased down the stairs and being attacked and all the things. And again, this is being written after Kohberger was arrested, but the information that they're supposed to be using for this is from before. But this is sort of like more proof of the fact that so much of this stuff was reverse engineered, because this report is not telling the exact same story that they've been telling us. It's proving more and more that they honestly have just no freaking idea what happened here. So even before they have Kohberger, is this the narrative that they had? Because this doesn't match the photographs. None of this original crap in this timed run is working for me in way of what we've already seen. Let me know down in the comments if I'm not remembering correctly, but this just does not, this shit doesn't add up. Chapin, who we believe was asleep, was murdered in the bed, which again, how? With those amphetamine levels and the fact that he was up on his right elbow when the injury started, proving that he was not asleep, that he was awake. And there's no way that in that attack, and with how quickly it all happened after the DoorDash got there, and we're supposed to believe, according to them, that Xana got that food and that food was eaten. Kohberger left the bedroom area and walked back down the hallway, passed through the living room kitchen, and exited through the sliding glass door, leaving the door partly open. Kohberger then walked back to his vehicle and drove away from the area. ISP detective Jeff Talbot, who again was the original lead as of the day that they were being asked to assist, I don't know exactly when it changed, and MPD Corporal Brett Payne assisted with the time runs. Corporal Payne tracked the times for each run. Detective Talbot walked through the residence with me, calling out the number of strikes to simulate the number of wounds to each victim based on autopsy reports. Now, again, we the public do not have the autopsy reports. We only have what's being described to us in the photographs that we've been allowed to see. Now, I know it's been a few weeks now, maybe even over a month, since the same person that created that really infamous 3D rendering of the home has now created what they think happened based on the stuff that we, the public, has now. I have seen little bits of it. I've been asked to do a reaction to it. I guess I probably need to sit down and watch the whole thing and see how this person thinks it all plays out. So I'll be doing that soon. But if you have already seen this from, I believe the name is Asgit, let me know down in the comments what you thought. I conducted 2 timed runs, the first being a quick as possible run and the second a slower, deliberate timed run. 4. During the first trial run, I began at the rear of the residence and came through the sliding glass door. I then quickly moved through the kitchen and up the stairs. I looked into the bedroom to the left and then moved down the hallway and into Mogen's bedroom. I simulated the number of strikes that were inflicted upon Mogen and Goncalves. Detective Talbot counted and kept track in an attempt to recreate the movements and motions believed to have occurred based on the evidence collected and autopsy reports. Do you guys know if anybody has requested that video? If not, then I guess we should try, right? I moved out of the bedroom, down the stairs, through the living room, down the hallway, and into Kernodle's bedroom. Again, with the assistance of Detective Talbot, I simulated the number of strikes that were inflicted upon Kernodle and Chapin. I then exited back down the hallway, through the living room, through the kitchen, and out the sliding glass door. Corporal Payne reported a time of approximately 1 minute and 30 seconds on a quick as possible timed run. Yeah, there ain't no freaking way. Y'all are out of y'all's minds. Number 5. On the second run, slower and deliberate. I followed the same path through the residence, but at a much slower, methodical pace. I again entered through the rear sliding glass door, opening it slowly to make no noise while doing so. I then walked as quietly as I could through the kitchen and up the stairs, attempting to make no noises. I looked into the first bedroom and then slowly moved down the hallway and into Mogen's bedroom. Detective Talbot counted and kept track again as I recreated the movements and motions believed to have occurred inside the bedroom. I exited the bedroom, moved back down the stairs, through the living room, down the hallway, and into Kernodle's bedroom. The movement to Kernodle's bedroom was slower than the first run, but still somewhat quick. I again simulated the movements and motions that took place inside Kernodle's bedroom. I then exited down the hallway, through the living room, through the kitchen, and out the sliding glass door. Corporal Payne reported a time of approximately 2 minutes and 33 seconds. They are literally insane. We additionally walked through simulated paths that Kohberger may have possibly taken from the vehicle to the back of the residence. The shortest and most direct path going from the parking area and moving east to the west along the back of the house took approximately 30 seconds. A second path starting at the southern edge of the property and walking a fence line through some trees and moving in a south to north direction towards the back of the house took approximately 1 minute. The times to make the same 2 paths at a running pace were approximately 6 to 7 seconds for the short path and 10 to 12 seconds for the longer path. The timed runs revealed that it was possible for Kohberger to have carried out the murders in as few as 2 minutes and 6 seconds, going at a fast pace on the shortest route to the vehicle, or as much as 3 minutes and 45 seconds, going at a slower pace on the longer route to the vehicle. So then how are they accounting for the huge gap of time that they have up here? The 4:07 to the 4:20. Why is there a 13-minute space right here, but they're trying to make us believe that everything took place in a minute and a half, 3 minutes and 45 seconds at the most time? I'm sorry, but that's just absolutely wild. And I mean, I know we've read this before, but that's just crazy to me. That's just absolutely crazy to me, especially given just the fact that we see the damage to Kaylee's face, the crack in Maddie's chest, the hair on the wall where Ethan and Xana were fighting for their lives, the, again, blood on the floor that literally screams exactly what happened. There's no way this took place in such a short amount of time. For one person, that makes legitimately zero sense. They're sitting there doing simulations, but they're not counting for the fact that there's defensive wounds. They want us to believe that one person was able to subdue 2 people at the exact same time and it still be that quick. And there was no tie-ups. There was nothing to make them be still or anything like that. Just a no. Like, I'm sorry. This legitimately makes zero freaking sense. But let me know if you guys remember going over this all these months ago when these files first started coming out. There is lives of me going over every single Moscow police report and every single Idaho State police report. But I have mentioned wanting to go back in and do them individually, one report each video, and really pay attention to what's being said, because again, we ran through them to try to get any information that pointed to where they wanted things to point, which was Kohberger, and didn't find anything. Out of all of the records that have come out, they literally only still have this DNA. If you like the way that I present this information and give my opinion, please don't forget to leave a like on the way out, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already, and please don't forget to make sure that the notification bell is set to all so you don't miss any of my rants, reviews, reactions, updates, or deep dives. See y'all.